Yes. What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday night. It's an hour later than normal. Like most of you this week, I've been dealing with fantasy football drafts. Just got the last one out of the way. Just finished up a little bit over 45 minutes ago. So now I'm ready to talk about some UFC. Now that those full season league drafts are out of the way, I could start turning my attention back to my first love, which is the UFC, which is MMA, and talk about how to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for the upcoming event and all events after that. So I appreciate all you guys that are tuning in here at an even later time than normal. Maybe catch some of you Europeans at a time that normally I wouldn't be able to catch you at because you're getting out of bed, at a time an hour later than normally than I'm on. So you never know. But look, we got 13 fights to break down for UFC 279. It's a very interesting card. There are some very compelling matchups. There are some very confusing matchups. There's some funny matchups. But, with every UFC card brings some opportunity. This one is a little bit harder to find, but I think maybe there are some underdogs on this card that are going to come through. But we'll have to talk about it. We'll have to figure out what it is that we can find. But I know that I always find the best audience in MMA here on my YouTube channel. So let's say what's up to all you guys that are hanging out in the chat right now. We got Bob Spikerman's in the room saying, appreciate the work, my man. I appreciate you, dude. We've got Grateful Dude saying, oh, what's up, man? It's good to see you in here, Grateful Dude. We got Victor De Jesus saying, oh, yes. What's up, Weezy in chat? Had a horrible night at DWCS tonight. I knew I fucked up when I heard Johnny the Greek agree with me. Gotta catch up now, making money on UFC 279. Let's see what we can find, man. As of right now, I've only got one tracked bet, and it's a terrifying bet. We'll talk about it a little bit later on. But as we move on here, I think there are some spots that are sticking out a little bit. We talked about some time props on Propability on the MMA Engine YouTube channel a little bit earlier today, and found some spots that we like there. We've got the Propability Parlay ready to go. So, some interesting spots. Let's see if we can find a way to make up that money that you lost tonight on DWCS. We got Mushroom in the room saying Collier is the prototype of Jabba the Hutt. They just ended up making Jabba skinnier. Yeah, and my man DFS by the numbers pulling the reverse Collier, but we have the regular Collier on this card. He's went from looking absolutely buff at 185 to looking pretty fat here at 265, but he's on a winning streak, so we'll see if he can keep it up here against Fat Barnett on Saturday, because that's going to be a fun fight. Two strikers, and they're both fun to watch on the feet, so it's going to be a good one. We got Daz File saying, "Oi, nice and violent main card." You got that right, man. Dope Space Cowboy in the room saying Collier by sub at plus 800 is a little crazy. He has a lot of rear naked chokes. Also, D-Rod finish only prop plus 160 isn't bad. I don't think Kevin can finish him. Yeah, D-Rod's never been finished, and Kevin Holland is also extremely durable. The only thing that he's really losing to is submissions. So very interesting spot, because D-Rod, I think, is a lot more likely to submit Kevin Holland than knock him out. And Holland is really known for his durability. So we got my guy Kiwi in the room saying, "Churl, what's up, Kiwi? Always love seeing you here." And my guy Lou Betya in the room, recovering from heart surgery, and the doctors making it extra difficult on him. Can you fucking believe that they told Lou that in order to recover from heart surgery, that he A, shouldn't smoke, and B, shouldn't drink? I don't think that doctor knows what the hell he's talking about, man. So I think Lou should be hopefully smoking and drinking soon so that its heart can do its job, which is to pump blood, man. But Lou, good to see you back in here after that heart surgery. Everybody send a little love Lou's way. Really rough to go under heart surgery, something that I have never had happen yet in my life, and hopefully will never have happen. But I know that he's recovering right now, and hopefully will be feeling a lot better real soon. big shout out to Lou Betya. We got Kiwi saying, sure, Lou. We got Banana Boat Float saying, what up? We got Mushroom saying that, Lou Betya, welcome back, Lou. We got Lou saying, thanks, bud. Weezy has to drink a Paloma for me. It's water tonight, you guys. I apologize for that. Gonna have to go out and get some tequila tomorrow night because I will be drinking Palomas tomorrow night with my guy Addicted to Combat on his show tomorrow, 8:30. I don't know if it's Eastern or Central. Everything's gone tits up this week with all the football, you guys. So it's just kind of been crazy. But trust me, after this week, back to full business. No full season drafts to perform. Just a little bit of waiver wire shit to do for less leagues than I had last year. So I'm very happy about that. Addicted to Combat saying that Lou Betya returns to the chat. Damn right. And Collier is a reverse Brady. Yes, sir, Mushroom. And Addicted to Combat with the fist bump. We got Robert Sella saying, who's the biggest weight bully, Imavov or Chimaev? Well, don't forget, Chimaev has fought at 185, so he wasn't really a weight bully up there, but Joel Alvarez was a weight bully at 170 when he was weighing in at 174 every fight. And Imavov is, I don't consider Imavov a weight bully like Chimaev is at 170. So I would say Chimaev. And we got Dave Bandit saying, let our winnings be as big as Collier's toilet seats. Let them be that big, man, for sure. We got Mushroom saying stack tickets as high as Collier's cholesterol level. We got Justin Villegas saying, like the later time, Uncle Weezy after dark. Just for this week, because of the football draft that I had to be at. But hey, man, we'll be back to the regular time next week. But it's always kind of late night here with Weezy. But, you guys know how it goes, man. Lou Betya saying Collier is the definition of definition. He is so right. M.A. Liren saying, here we go again. Bring those ingredients for the Czech flapjacks, Unc. You got it, man. Mushroom laughing at Lou Betya. King Bicky saying, I was leading Tony Ferguson as a dog this week until I realized the Leech has been fighting in the UFC since 2014. Yeah, Leech has been around, man. We got Mushroom saying, what's up to Daz Files? Level Up saying, welcome back, Lou. Daz Files saying that Lou Betya get better at Mushroom. Hey, bro. Dave Bandit saying, water. How disrespectful, Weezy. Yeah, man. Just like I say, you guys, it just didn't happen this week. I'm out of tequila. I'm getting some tomorrow for Addicted to Combat show. But, man, time. There has been no time over these last 5 days. It's been a crazy weekend and early week thus far. And Lou Betya saying I would make prison wine at this point. Evidently, it's come to that. But, hopefully soon you'll be feeling well enough that you can have a drink every now and again, man. At least I hope so, dude. And 2023 Super Bowl champion, the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's go. I've got some Raiders, man. I got some Josh Jacobs in one of my 3 leagues, man. And then Jay saying Imavov's not a weight bully. Bookie is just a small middleweight. Middleweights are huge. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't think Imavov is a weight bully either. But let's talk about last week, first of all. We were down 1.33 units tracked. Not a lot of tracked bets. I lost 1 unit on the Aylin Perez money line at plus 275. She looked better than Egger in the striking, but she just kept falling into that clinch with Egger, and Egger just dominates there and really dominated on the ground. So, but when you're taking a plus 275, you're not exactly expecting them to come through and dominate. But she had her moments, but she's got a lot of growing to do. Egger was a very tough short notice replacement for her. And then we also lost on, let's see what else. Gone 4-5 decision. Oh, he couldn't have just waited another 30 seconds, man. That was rough because the greasy 4-leg parlay was the Benoit Saint Denis money line, and he made it look easy. The Abu Sufian Magomedov money line, he made it look easy. Robert Whitaker by decision. I think he easily won that fight by decision. And then Gone 4-5 decision. And we were just 30 seconds away from hitting that plus 800 on the Gone 4-5 decision to close out that greasy 4-leg parlay. So me not getting that one was the difference between being up 1.0 units and being down 1.33 units. And I forget what else I had. I know I had a small little sprinkle on Gabriel Miranda, an eighth of a unit by first round submission at plus 1,600. That didn't hit. Let me just see here. We'll look at the profile here. And yeah, so we lost 1 unit on Aylin Perez. We lost 1 unit on the Cyril Gane 4-5 decision line. We won 1 unit on the probability parlay, which was the fight starts round 3 for Jordan Wood, and the fight doesn't go to decision for Miranda St. Denis. And then I also lost on this parlay here as I was looking for that Miranda St. Denis fight to end by submission because both of these guys had so many submission wins. And I had that parlay with the over 2.5 in Whitaker Vittori. So that also didn't cash. So yeah, down 1.33 units. But if that Gane fight, if Gane would have just waited till round 4 to finish, it would have been an up day, and then we would have hit that greasy 4-legger too. Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week was Abousupian Magomedov, and he absolutely destroyed it, finishing in less than 30 seconds, Dustin Stoltzfus. So a pretty good week. We were very close to it being an absolutely huge week in terms of that greasy 4-legger hitting and being an up week in tracked at least for 1 unit. But right back to work, you guys. And we've got 13 fights to break down here. And we are going to be starting with Darian Weeks versus Yohan Lainesse. So let me zoom in on the stats here a little bit so you guys can see it. We got Sean V in the room welcoming back our guy Lou Betcha. And let's see here. We've got, instead of breaking down the Chimaev Diaz fight, instead maybe we just talk about how Nate Diaz, how good he was in his best moments. I agree. That's not a bad idea, man. Because, you know, he's given so much to the UFC. And he's one of the pioneers of the sport, and it was in a ton of exciting fights. So, yeah, it would be good to remember the good times for Nate Diaz, because this is going to be a rough way for him to go out for sure. So, yeah, let's hope that we go back to being the Mac of the Flapjack stack this week and get right back on another good winning streak, which we were on prior to losing 1.33 units last week. So, Darian Weeks is minus 119. Yohan Lainesse minus 101. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 190. So when we're looking here in the measurables, I like Lainesse's advantage. Weeks is 2 years younger, but it's Lainesse who's going to be the bigger guy here with a 2-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. And both guys are orthodox fighters. In the pro experience here, I'm giving it even, because even though Yohan has 2 more pro fights and 6 more months as a pro fighter, it's Weeks who has a couple more minutes in the pro cage and almost 20 more minutes in the UFC cage. But when we look at the finish stats and the durability here, I got to give Weeks that advantage, because Weeks has a 100% finish rate in his 5 pro wins, and he has 2 wins by submission and 3 by knockout. So he's more of an equal opportunity finisher, while Yohan has a 75% career finish rate, and all 6 of his finishes are by knockout. Yohan has been finished in his only pro loss, which was at the UFC level by Gabe Green, while Weeks has 2 pro losses, both of them at the UFC level, and he's never been finished in either one of them. So I have to give the finish stats and durability advantages to Weeks here. When we go up here to the striking stats, we will see I'm giving the advantage to Lainesse, and here's why. Yohan is very, very dangerous early in fights. And when they are on the feet, he throws everything with fight-ending intentions. So while he has power early, his pacing isn't good, and he gasses out early as a result of throwing 100% power into all of his strikes. So Yohan has 2 knockdowns in only 2 UFC fights. So that power is what really shows out here in the numbers. When you see a 4.35% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed and 2.82 knockdowns per 15 minutes. But remember, that's only in 46 strikes landed and 93 attempted. So the power, though, is definitely there. And we see Weeks with about a 50% striking defense, and he's never been knocked down, and he's absorbed 182 strikes, significant strikes at the UFC level. Neither guy's been much of a minute winner on the feet, as both guys get out-volumed and outlanded by their opponents thus far. Lainesse is averaging 2.82 knockdowns for 15 minutes, and the striking defense has been much better at 61% for him compared to 50% for Weeks. So, I mean, I'm going to give Lainesse that striking advantage. And then the grappling, I'm going to give it to Weeks. Both guys have done a solid job of using their wrestling to win some minutes at the UFC level. Weeks outcontrols his opponents at about a 6-to-1 ratio, and Yohan it's a 4-to-1 ratio. So see Weeks with 20.5% control time and only yielding 3.33%, and Lainesse getting about 25% control time, yielding about 6.5%. Lainesse has never been taken down though, and neither has Weeks, but neither one of these guys' opponents has even attempted a takedown against them. But it's Weeks who's attempted 11 takedowns in 2 fights, while for Lainesse it's 5. So Weeks has been the more willing wrestler, and he's getting them at a 45% clip. Lainesse, no slouch, getting them at a 40% clip. But the thing when it comes to the grappling, you guys, and you know how important this is how the conditioning factors in. And we've seen Lainesse wrestle. We've seen him gas out early in fights. So I feel like if this fight gets into the grappling realm, it's just a matter of time before Weeks starts taking over there, because the gas tank that it takes to push a wrestling heavy game plan is something that Lainesse has not shown the ability to do yet at the UFC level. So I kind of feel like Lainesse probably should try to keep this fight standing, because Weeks has good boxing, but really it's his wrestling that I think makes him stand out. And he's got some power as well, but the wrestling, the submission wins are all part of Weeks's game, where I think that as the fight goes on, and if Lainesse hasn't figured out this conditioning / pacing problem that he's shown, how are we going to see Lainesse be able to deal with the wrestling heavy game plan of Darian Weeks? That's something that remains to be seen. And we're going to have to see how the takedown defense holds up at this level, because Weeks is a lifelong wrestler. So, Weeks has got a couple wins by sub. Lainesse has never subbed anybody at this level, and he's never subbed anybody in his career. So I got to give Weeks the grappling advantage. And you look at the strength of schedule here. Lainesse has fought Gabe Green at this level, and then Justin Burlinson in the DWCS. But Darian Weeks has fought Brian Barberena and Ian Gary. So he's fought much better competition at the UFC level. But then when you go pre-UFC, a couple tough fights here against Cuts and Green. I don't know if Rafati had a good record, but we will see here that Yohan Lainesse was fighting in CFFC prior to being in the UFC, and that is a very, very good regional scene organization with some excellent competition. And 4 fights at the UFC or at the CFFC level prior to coming in against Burlinson on the Contender Series, while Weeks prior to the UFC was fighting LFA Craig Fairley, but Craig Fairley was 3-4, and then Dustin Parrish 8-3 in the Midwest Fight League, and then a 2-0 Blaine Richards, is an 0-0 Travis Ford, and a 2-0 Zach Long. But then you look here, and you see an IMMAF record that goes back quite a ways here, and we can see something very interesting. The loss was by decision here. The loss was by decision here. The doctor's stoppage here against LaRae Hutchinson, and then a unanimous decision loss here. So even in his career, he's never been submitted or knocked out, but he has had 1 doctor stoppage. I don't know what happened there. Darian Weeks is very durable. So one of the bets that we were talking about on probability this week was the over 1.5 for this fight, because right now it's priced at about 60%, but fights go over 1.5 in the 175-pound weight class 66.72% of the time. And Darian Weeks is very durable, and he's not much of a finisher in terms of finishing higher level competition. And when they do come, as we can see here, they're coming in round 2. Round 120, round 2, 151, round 2, round 2, round 2, and then there's 1 in round 1. So I like the fight starts round 2 or the over 1.5 because usually it's going to take at least that long for Lainesse to gas out. And Weeks, I think, might be durable enough to weather the early storm here. So this one here, over 1.5 at minus 155 for Weeks Lainesse, is a 6% break when you compare the long-term over 1.5 rate to the implied probability of the line here. It's a 14.22% break when we compare that 3 out of these guys' 4 fights have went over 1.5 rounds, compared to only 61% on the implied probability of the line, and that these guys go over 1.5 in their 4 UFC fights, 8.28% of the time higher than what the division does. So the prop template likes the over 1.5 here at minus 155 if you can find it there. I think that is a very good bet. But I think the pick here is going to be Darian Weeks to win this one by decision. I think the wrestling of Weeks can drag Lainesse into the deep waters, and I think Weeks can win the second and third round with his wrestling here if Lainesse has not fixed the pacing/conditioning problem that he's shown at this level. So yeah, Darian Weeks by decision is the pick for the curtain jerker. The next fight, we got Super Melly, Melissa Martinez going up against Elise Reed. This one, we've got lines here of minus 173 for Melissa Martinez, plus 148 for Elise Reed, and the fight doesn't go to decision, is sitting at plus 190. Interesting fight for sure. We got the stats up here. When we look at these measurables for these two ladies, I'm going to give the advantage to Martinez. As Melissa is 4 years younger, she's got a 2.5-inch reach advantage, and she's a southpaw. So I like all of that for Martinez. Elise Reed listed at 1 inch taller. When we look at the experience, got to give the advantage to Reed here. Even though they both have 7 fights, you can see that Elise Reed has got about 25 more minutes in the pro cage, and that even though she's only been a pro for 3 years and Melissa Martinez has been a pro for 6, we can tell that Elise Reed's been the much busier fighter. Add to that fact that Elise Reed was also fighting in CFFC, fighting much higher level of competition than Melissa Martinez was fighting on the regional scene, in my opinion at least. Jazz Davicius and Hillary Rose are 2 names that Elise fought in the regional scene in CFFC that are probably a little bit better that most people would agree than the fighters that Melissa Martinez has fought thus far. But either way, Reed's got 3 fights at the UFC level in addition to the 2 good fights that she had at CFFC here. So we see 32 more minutes, 3 more fights at the UFC level here for Reed. When it comes to the finish stats and the durability, got to give that advantage to Martinez, as she's got a 71% career finish rate, all of it by knockout. And Reed has been finished in both of her pro losses, but they're against much higher level competition, let's face it. Even though Sam Hughes isn't the highest level, definitely that debut on short notice up a weight class against Sijara Eubanks was just a nightmare way to get welcome to the UFC. So, because Martinez has never lost, I'm just assuming she's been more durable since we've seen Reed finished in both of her losses. And Reed's got a 40% finish rate as a pro, Martinez 71%. So we got to give Martinez the advantages there. When it comes to the striking, I'm going to give the advantage to Reed. I think the striking is going to be close. However, due to the difference in level of competition, I'm going to have to favor Reed here. Reed's 1-2 in the UFC, but she's losing fights because she gets controlled on the ground, not because she's losing minutes on the feet. I went through and I accumulated Elise Reed's striking numbers and the striking numbers of her opponents at distance only. And at distance thus far in the UFC, Reed has a positive 2.02 significant strike differential, and she's showing 66.1% striking defense. I think this fight probably stays at distance, and Reed has shown the capacity to win minutes at range thus far in the UFC. Martinez is also a good striker with a traditional martial arts background, much like Reed. She's a southpaw with a nice straight left, and she uses her kicks well to keep range. We will see how much her striking is improved in the almost 3 years away from the cage. So that's something we need to talk about here before we get into the grappling, is how long it's been since we've seen Melissa Martinez and how inactive she's been. So Super Melly has not fought since the Desiree Yanez fight in December of 2019. Since then, she's had another fight with Desiree Yanez since it was a split decision win that was canceled due to coronavirus. That fight never happened. And then she was supposed to fight Hannah Cifers on this card and welcome Hannah Cifers back to the UFC. But Cifers had to pull out. So now Elise Reed is stepping in for Hannah Cifers here. And then you see the wins. Desiree Yanez 5-1. Desiree is now 5-4. So she has not won since that fight. Caroline Gallardo 3-2. Frances Hernandez 3-2. Ivana Martineggi 0-1. Gloria Barrios 3-2. Yahaira Romo 3-2. And Ileana Rodriguez 0-0. And then Jennifer Arriaga as an amateur. And then you see the names on Reed's resume, and it's Sam Hughes, Corey McKenna, Sajara Eubanks, Hillary Rose, Jillian DeCourcy, who I believe is now the UAE Warriors champion, Jasmine Jazz DeVicious, Rebecca Brigman, and then look at that amateur career, spanning back to 2013 with a 7-1 amateur career here and a very good Taekwondo background. So, there's a lot of things that are working against Super Melly here. And that's that. Well, first here, let's talk about the grappling. Neither one of these ladies is likely to attempt any takedown. So I think that this fight takes place on the feet. The strength of schedule advantage absolutely goes to Reed. We just went through all that. So Martinez has the measurables advantage here. She's got the finish stats and durability advantages, while Reed has the experience, the striking, and the strength of schedule advantages. I feel like plus money on the Reed side has got to be the way to go here. There's much less unknowns for Reed, and her distance striking numbers at the UFC level make me confident that she can win minutes standing. We haven't seen Super Melly in almost 3 years. She hasn't fought the level of competition. Now, these ladies are young, you guys, and that is important. Melissa Martinez is only 25, and we haven't seen her since she was 22. So we could have seen huge improvements from Martinez. So that is a big unknown here. But you're laying juice. You're laying juice on the unknown quantity here that hasn't fought as good a competition. And that is unlikely to be able to win minutes in the places where Elise Reed has been least likely to win those minutes. And that's on the defensive wrestling and in the grappling. But even Elise Reed was, getting back up when Corey McKenna was taking her down. Jasmine Jazz DeVicious was taking her down and was having a hard time holding her down. So Reed, I just think that this is kind of a smash spot. Melissa Martinez could come in and look phenomenal. She's young. She's getting better. She trains with her parents, and her parents are lifelong martial artists. She's undefeated. She's never tasted defeat, but she's just, on a long layoff. She's been a lot less active, and she hasn't fought as good a competition. And I think that she excels in the same place that Elise Reed does. So because I see this fight as 50-50, I'm going to say that the money line here at plus 148 for Elise Reed is the way to go. And it's about as good as it's been since the opening. But Elise Reed did open at plus 212, but then you saw that get immediately smashed down to plus 145. And then from there, it's bounced between plus 145 and plus 148, and it's been as low as plus 120 on September 2nd, 4 days ago. So Elise Reed by decision is going to be the pick here, and we can get Elise Reed by decision at plus 200 on BetOnline, plus 240 on Betway. So that's another way to look at it, but I think I wouldn't be greedy because you're already getting the plus 148 on BetOnline. I think Elise Reed at plus 148 is something I'll be looking at betting this week for sure, because there are a lot of underdogs in this card that I think are a little bit juicy and have a little bit better of a chance to win than people think. So there we go. Elise Reed by decision is the pick for that one. Let's go to the next one, which is Chad Anheliger against Heili Alateng, or I should say Alateng Heili. I have it listed as Heili Alateng because that is his first name, is Heili. Alateng's the last name, but they pronounce the last name first name last. Alateng Heili against Chad Anheliger. It's Anheliger who's the dog here at plus 135. Heili juiced up to minus 155. The fight doesn't go to decision at plus 130. So we've got, hang on just a second here. We got Tristan in the house. Good to see him, man. We got Couch Warrior in the house. Good to see him. Kevin Atari in here saying just tuning in, but God bless you for the Abus puck pick. I appreciate that, man. So, yeah, Daz Files, Mushroom, all you guys hanging out. Appreciate you. Okay. And let me see something else here real quick. Okay. So I've got the banner up. I've got the stats up. And let's talk about Anheliger Alateng. So, when I'm looking at these tail of the tape numbers here, Heili's younger. He's got a reach advantage. Chad's got 1 inch of height, and they're both orthodox fighters. So I definitely like Alateng with the measurables. When it comes to the experience, you got to give it to Alateng as well, as he's got 8 more pro fights, 125 more minutes in the pro cage, 3 more fights at the UFC level, and over 30 more minutes in the UFC cage. So we like all of that. And then at the UFC level, he's obviously got that advantage too. When we look at the finish stats and durability, Anheliger's got the better finish rate, and Alateng's shown the better durability here. As we can see, Anheliger, 83% finish rate to only 53% for Heili. Both guys get more knockouts than they do submissions. Alateng is one of the more durable guy, even though both guys do get finished a lot. And Anheliger has been finished in all 5 of his pro losses, all of them by submission, as we can see right here. His last loss, though, was back in 2014, so it was 8 years ago. I don't know how much we can take from that, and that was before he changed camps and before he started off his career 2-5. Then he switched camps to Champions Creed, and since he's done that, he's on a 10-fight winning streak. So completely different Chad Anheliger now. And we saw Muin Gafurov grapple the shit out of him, a Sambo champion, a guy who was a big favorite in that fight. And we saw Chad keep fighting his way back to the feet, keep finding ways to get himself back into the fight. And he won enough of those stand-up exchanges and got back to his feet enough times when Gafurov took him down in order to win that decision. And that was a hell of a fight. Alateng has been finished in 4 of his 8 pro losses, but his last finished loss was back in 2017. So 5 years ago for Alateng since he's been finished, and that was against Kai Asakura, who's, the Risen champion. So Anheliger is the more prolific finisher, both as a pro and at the UFC level, as he's got a 50% finish rate to only 33% for Heili, and Alateng has historically been more durable. When it gets to the striking here, got to give the advantage to Chad. He's got really nice boxing. On paper, everywhere but in striking defense, Anheliger has the better stats in a smaller sample size, mind you. Chad is more accurate, 55%, compared to 33% for Heili. He's more powerful. He's got 1.58 knockdowns per 15 minutes to only 0.25 knockdowns per 15 minutes for Heili. Chad's he's got the better significant strike differential at positive 0.66 compared to a negative 2.21 significant strike differential for Heili Alateng. So that's not very good. And Chad's throwing 0.6 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents, while Alateng's throwing 3.66 less significant strike attempts than his opponents. So Heili's just been very inactive on the aggregate. So it looks like, Alateng, because he's gotten these that knockout in the last fight that he had, that, he's the more powerful striker, but the numbers don't hash that out. So, Heili might be depending on his power, but it's not coming enough for us to be able to trust it. So the big difference here is Alateng's fight stays standing about 84% of the time, while Chad's only stays standing about 47% of the time. So, I think Chad might be getting the fight that he wants here a little bit more, because I think this fight will be standing, because we just haven't seen Heili really go to the wrestling nearly enough at the UFC level. So in the grappling, I've got it listed as even with a question mark here. So you see Chad 0 for 3 on takedowns, Alateng 7 for 21 on takedowns. So 5 fights, 21 takedown attempts. So just over 4 takedown attempts per fight. That's not bad. That's mixing in the wrestling pretty good, but he's only gotten 7 of those takedowns. And the problem is that there's only 10.26% control time. 4. So, and he's only allowing 3.54 and showing some good takedown defense here at over 72%. So Heili's done a good job of stopping the takedowns that are coming his way. He's getting some decent takedowns, but he's not accruing a lot of control time with them. And we've seen Chad have a hard time stopping takedowns here, as his takedown defense is only 53%. And he's giving up almost 39% control time here, but that's seeing 9.5 takedown attempts per fight compared to the 4 takedown attempts per fight that Heili Alateng is showing here, and while only getting 10% control time. So that's less than 6 minutes of control time here. Or, it's just like about 6.1 minutes on 7 takedowns. So when he gets the takedowns, he's not been successful holding his opponent down and winning minutes there. So I think Chad's going to get to stay standing here, and I think that this is going to be a boxing match. And Chad has shown nice little power here, landing 2 knockdowns in only 2 fights. You got to like that. Or as a matter of fact, I think it's 3 knockdowns. Because, it's almost 3%. So 3 knockdowns for Anheliger, while Alateng has only 1 knockdown in 5 UFC fights and 60 minutes in the cage. So I think Anheliger's power could be the difference here. When we look at the strength of schedule, though, it's Alateng. He's got the better win. He's got the better ratio overall, and he's fighting the more experienced competition. So if we look at this in summary here, Heili's got the measurables advantage. He's got the pro and UFC experience advantage, the durability advantage, probably the grappling advantage, but I don't know. He's just the more likely guy to wrestle and win minutes, but he's not doing it enough at the UFC level for us to think he's going to win enough minutes there for it to be enough to change the outcome of the fight, in my opinion. So Chad is 1 inch taller. He's been a pro for 3 more years. He's got the finish stats and the striking advantages here. This should be a close fight, but I'm going to lean with Heili's youth, UFC experience, and strength of schedule advantages here. But I think it's a very close fight, and I think that Chad Anheliger is very live at this number here. As you see, Anheliger is plus 145 on DraftKings, and he's been as low as plus 120, but the number keeps getting fatter here. And 145, 150 is about the best we've seen it. But like I say, if this winds up being, a 15-minute striking match on the feet, and you see somebody like Alateng, who's throwing almost 4 less significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents, landing 2 significant strikes less per minute than his opponents per minute. And then we got Chad showing power, and he's outlanding, and he's out-voluming his opponents. So I think it's very interesting how this fight shakes out. I think the plus money side is the side that I would bet here. I would not lay minus 180 on Heili Alateng in this spot. I think Anheliger is going to be very live on the feet. But if you can get Heili at minus 155, that looks a lot better. But when we look at the props in this fight, I believe this is one fight that we kind of just said stay away from for the props. Yeah. For the first one, we like the over 1.5 at minus 155 or minus 163 for Weeks Lainesse. Like the over 2.5 for Reed versus Melly at minus 275, potential parlay piece. But in this one, I don't really see much here. I think both guys have some finishing equity, and I think both guys have been finished. but paying minus 175, or wait, no, that's the wrong fight. It's plus 120 for guys who, as pros, are finishing about 64.29% of the time, but at the UFC level, only 2 of 7 fights inside the distance. So I think the prop template is showing here a little bit more that these guys' history at the UFC level, which isn't a big sample size, favors the overs here, but it's not one that I'm touching in terms of time props. I'm going to go with Heili Alateng winning this fight by decision, but I think my favorite bet thus far is that plus 145 on the money line for Anheliger. But let's move on to the next fight, everybody. We've got Norma Dumont going up against Danyelle Wolf, who's making her debut here. Dumont, big favorite, minus 425. Danyelle Wolf, big underdog, plus 325. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at plus 160. Very juicy. Let's go through the notes here and go through the stats. So when it comes to the measurables, I believe that Wolf is going to be, yes, she's absolutely the much bigger woman here. We got 4 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage, but it's Norma Dumont who's 7 years younger, and that is statistically significant. Usually when there's a 7-year age gap or more, you see the younger fighter winning around 65% of the time. So it's something that does have value. In terms of experience, it's obviously Dumont, as Wolf only has 1 professional MMA fight, and it was the Dana White Contender Series fight, because she evidently, according to her, had 14 different opponents cancel fights on her before she finally got the look on the Contender Series. So, yeah, very inexperienced is Wolf, and Norma Dumont, not a picture of experience here with less than 10 pro fights herself, but at least she's got over 100 minutes in the pro cage. She's got almost 6 years as a pro, so she's just been doing this for 4 years longer than Danyelle Wolf has. We also got UFC experience advantage here, obviously, for Dumont, with 4 more fights and almost 60 more minutes in the UFC cage. Dumont's got the finish stats advantage because she's got 2 finishes as a pro, while Danyelle Wolf has none. And she's only been finished once. It was by Megan Anderson, and we don't know. Wolf is fairly durable. She came back from a spot getting sparked by Tanisha Tennant for a second. So Wolf has shown a little bit of durability. I don't think she's getting finished much as a boxer. So when it comes to the striking, I'm going to give Wolf the advantage here. But there's no numbers to suggest that, right? Wolf is an Olympic-level boxer, so her stand-up is much cleaner and more technical than Dumont's. Dumont may have the better MMA striking skill set, though, and her numbers at the UFC level indicate that she's winning minutes on the feet against UFC-level competition. Norm has a positive 1.48 significant strike differential, while Wolf's is negative 2.27. Wolf couldn't hit water if she fell out of a boat in her debut, landing at only 28.18%. Norma's landing at a 50% accuracy, and she's got a 67% striking defense in 5 UFC fights and almost 75 minutes in the cage. So her ability to win minutes might be more UFC ready, but those performances were against pretty bad strikers. Norma would be very, very smart to grapple here, you guys. Very smart. Because the only pure striker that she fought was Megan Anderson, and Megan sparked her. So grappling advantage is obviously Norma Dumont all day, every day. She got out-controlled at almost a 2-to-1 ratio thus far in the UFC. As you see, she's giving up 25% and only getting about 13.5%. But her opponents have attempted twice as many takedowns, at 20 here to 11 for Dumont, but they've only gotten 1 more than her. So Norma's not particularly efficient on the ground or on the cage at the UFC level thus far. But, we know that she doesn't allow people to really bully her either, as Aspen Ladd was continuously trying to get into the clinch, try to get her to the ground, and she was just unsuccessful doing that. So she's going to probably try to bully Danyelle here to make this fight take place where Danyelle's going to be the least comfortable, and that's going to be on the cage, and that's going to be on the mat. Because at boxing range, Danyelle Wolf is taller, She's longer, and she's got the better, more technical striking. And she throws with power. You can tell she throws with power when she's throwing. It's just that she's not particularly accurate. And that could be a problem here. And that's why Dumont's such a big favorite. Because Dumont's got a big strength of schedule advantage here, too. She's got 5 UFC fights. So she's obviously got the strength of schedule here, as Danyelle Wolf has only fought Tanisha Tennant. We can see right there, that's her only professional fight. As you see, Megan Anderson, Ashley Evans-Smith, Felicia Spencer, Aspen Ladd, Macy Chason on Dumont's resume here. So, look, Dumont is a big favorite. She should be a favorite in this fight. But if this fight stays standing for 15 minutes, if Norma Dumont is unable to win minutes in the clinch against Wolf and is unable to take down Wolf and win minutes on the mat, she's not going to look minus 425. She might even look like an underdog. And Danyelle Wolf is one of these prospects that they're trying to get some fights and some eyes on in the UFC, an Olympic level boxer, but she's 38 years old. So I don't know what's going on with Wolf here. She's transferred to MMA after the Olympics removed her weight class. So this is what she's been forced into doing. Only one fight. It's really hard to back her here, but I think it's irresponsible to lay minus 425 on Norma Dumont because we have to see her do something that she has not done a good job of doing yet. With only a little over 1/8 control time thus far in the UFC, can we count on her to go out there and get enough takedowns and win enough minutes on the ground in order to look minus 425? Because I think if she goes out there and takes down Wolf and holds her down and uses that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt to start hunting for submissions, that she can cover that price tag pretty easily. But haven't seen enough of it, you guys. We just haven't seen enough of it. And we have seen Danyelle Wolf stuff 7 takedowns here. And she did give up almost 30% control time, but that was because she jumped for a guillotine in the 3rd round. And, you know, she was kind of close to getting it, actually. But look here, Dumont, if she wrestles, if she clinches, should easily win this fight. But I wouldn't hate anybody that took a little stab on Danyelle Wolf by knockout, maybe. As we've seen Norma Dumont lose by knockout in her only finished loss. And if Wolf lands some big shots, maybe she on the feet, maybe she gets Dumont. What is Wolf by knockout? Do we have that line? Wolf by KO plus 700. I'd like to get about plus 1,000 on that potentially. Because it's not likely, and she wasn't even knocking out people as a boxer. But I think it's her path to winning this fight. Either that or Norma just being stupid and not, wrestling, not clinching. And if she doesn't do those things, she could make Danyelle Wolf at plus 330 look like a great bet. But Wolf by decision, plus 450. Yeah, like I say, I'd like to get bigger numbers on this, but still, I mean, I could see taking shots on Danyelle Wolf, but the pick is going to be Norma Dumont. I'm hoping she takes her down and is able to submit her, but I still think even if she doesn't, she can cleanly win minutes on the mat and in the clinch here in order to be able to, look like a big favorite. Is she going to look minus 425? Probably not. Especially if she doesn't take her down. But I'll pick Dumont to win the fight. But if this line keeps going, I don't have a problem taking a small stab, maybe 1/10 of a unit on Wolf by knockout or Wolf by decision, just to have a little action on the fight. But yeah, this should be Norma's fight here. The next one, oh boy, this is good. This should be a fun fight, you guys. It should be. We will see. Oh, and by the way, I was also just looking at for Dumont Wolf. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting up at about plus 150, but I think that may have even moved to plus 160 now. Yeah, plus 160. So if we look at that, plus 160, the fight doesn't go to decision. The 5-round finish rate, the 3-round finish rate for featherweight fight, because this is a featherweight fight, women's featherweight, is 56.25%. And at the current line, we're paying 38. So it's like an 18% break when you figure that you compare that finish rate for the division at 145, which is where the fight is taking place, but we just don't have much data there to this 38% line. And I could see Wolf landing a big shot on the feet because Dumont's been knocked out before. And I could see Dumont getting the fight to the ground, using that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt to potentially submit the boxer in Wolf. So plus 160 is an interesting time prop bet for Dumont versus Wolf. But yeah, the next fight that we do have to talk about is going to be Fat Collier versus Fat Barnett. Two heavyweights here, two portly gentlemen. And we got Collier. He used to fight at middleweight, moved up to light heavyweight, and then heavyweight. And yeah, it looks like he looks like the before picture for a Weight Watchers ad right now. And Chris Barnett's always been fat and small for the heavyweight division, but he's a dynamic striker, a surprisingly good athlete for somebody his size, somebody as obese as he is. He's got great spinning fat kicks, really interesting Taekwondo techniques. Caught Vellante with that spinning fat kick to the head that finished the fight. So yeah, it should be a fun striking battle. I don't know if we can count on Collier to wrestle here, but I think it would be smart if he did. But we got to remember, Collier only 18 takedown attempts in 11 UFC fights here. So it's not a guy that's been going out there and winning minutes in the grappling. But we can see that Barnett has only had one takedown shot on him, and it was completed. And he's given up 38% control time thus far at the UFC level. So only 60% of Barnett's fights have taken place standing, and he's getting controlled at about, like 30-something to 1. I mean, not that quite that bad, about an 18-to-1 ratio, 19-to-1 ratio, something like that. So Collier would be smart to grapple here, but I still think that he could win the minutes on the feet too. It's not like Barnett has this spectacular striking. In terms of Collier landing one more significant strike a minute than he absorbs and throwing almost 4 more per minute is fantastic, as Barnett, is easily getting outlanded here and easily getting out-volumed, showing piss poor 38% striking defense. He's been knocked down once in 3 fights, and he's not really a wrestler. He's not going to try to wrestle Fat Collier here. So, I think that Collier's got more than one path. I think he can, outbox Chris Barnett, just avoid the spinning fat kicks and heel kicks and things like that. And if we look at the strength of schedule too, neither one of these guys is fighting world beaters, but it's very similar, actually. But, Collier should be better everywhere. He's younger. He's the bigger dude. He's 6 inches taller, 7 inches taller, 4-inch reach advantage, and a lot more UFC level experience, as Chris Barnett doesn't really have any signature wins as a pro. I mean, even Fat Vellante at the stage of the career that Vellante was at is not. I mean, that's his best win by a country mile. The rest of the guys that he's beaten are a bunch of 0-0 guys or jobbers with like 18-43 records. So this should be Collier. It should be Collier pretty easily. But, I am not laying minus 425 on Jake Collier. There's no chance in hell. He's not worth laying that on. He's not good enough anywhere to lay that kind of juice on him, no matter how bad you think his opponent is. So yeah, Collier, even potentially Collier inside the distance. But like I say, at this line, I'm not trying to pick props. But the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 120. Only priced up just a little bit from the under 2.5 is not a bad look. It's 8.39% underpriced when you consider that, about 63% of heavyweight fights do finish inside the distance, and we're only paying 54.5% here. And we've seen Chris Barnett finished in 1 of 2 UFC losses and in 4 of 8 pro losses. So these guys are getting finished inside the distance over half the time as pros, and they're finishing their fights about 50% of the time here. So not a bad line. I think I'm leaning violence here because the fight goes and the overs are all overpriced when you compare them, the implied probability of the line to the benchmark for the division. They're all overpriced by like 12.5% and 15% for the fight goes. And then even when we compare the fighter over rates to the implied probability of the line, we're still overpaying here. So the prop template likes the value on the violent sides here. And I don't think minus 120 for a heavyweight fight finishing inside the distance. You could get Collier taking down Barnett and finishing him on the ground. You could get Barnett landing a spinning fat kick here. You could have either one of these morbidly obese gentlemen just tap out after 6 minutes because of poor conditioning. So, yeah, this is one I think that the fight doesn't go to decision is not a bad look. But other than that, staying away from this fight pretty much. The next fight, Denis Tiuliulin at plus 115 coming up against the Night Wolf in Jamie Pickett, minus 135. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 110 here. So we see that these guys are both 34 years old, but it's Pickett who's an inch taller and who has a 3-inch reach advantage. We see Pickett with 4 more pro fights, about almost 70 more minutes in the pro cage, and about a little over a year more as a pro, too, and a lot more UFC experience with 7 more UFC fights and about 70 more minutes in the UFC cage. Tiuliulin finishing at an 89% rate, all by knockout. Pickett finishing at about a 70% rate, almost entirely all by knockout as well. So if you're looking for a cheeky way to play violence in this spot, I would say that the fight ends by KO would be a good way to maybe get plus money on this fight finishing inside the distance. As we see that Jamie Pickett has been knocked out in 1 of his 7 losses, and he's been subbed in 3 of his 7 losses. And we see that Tiuliulin's been knocked out once and subbed in 50% of his losses. So even though these guys lose by submission a lot more than they lose by knockout, neither one of these guys is what I would call a submission threat. Even though Pickett is attempting almost 2 submissions per 15 minutes, he's obviously never gotten any at the UFC level. If we go to the striking numbers here, Tiuliulin's don't look great because he did fight Elise Chimaev, but still threw more volume than Chimaev, landed about a 38% rate, but a 37% striking defense is not good. Pickett, not much better at 46%, and he's been knocked down twice in 8 fights, but he's got a knockdown of his own. But Tiuliulin, I think, will be the more powerful striker on the feet. Pickett has attempted 17 takedowns in 8 fights. He's gotten them almost half of them, which is really good. 47% is fantastic. And he's active, attempting submissions on the ground and getting those takedowns, but still only, less than 10% control time for. That's very low. And a lot of that is clinch control time against what's his name, Staropoli. So there's not much to like there. 22.76% control time allowed means that he's probably just as likely to give up control time as Tiuliulin is. But Tiuliulin fought, a Russian in Chimaev who's got very good wrestling, very good control time. So when we look at the strength of schedule here, Tiuliulin's fought Chimaev, and Pickett's got less than 1 ratio with not much in the way of total fights, and the wins not impressive. It's a low-level middleweight fight here. It's not much to talk about. I think that the plus money side on Tiuliulin at plus 115 is intriguing. Tiuliulin by knockout is what? Plus 325. I think that's how he wins, because 89% of his career wins are by knockout, and the dude hits hard. I think that's how you play the Tiuliulin side if you do play him. And for Pickett, I think it would be Pickett by decision, simply because he's not much of a finisher at this level, and he's happy to try to win minutes on the fence like he did in the Staropoli fight. So plus 200, plus 240. Yeah, this one is a big stay away, but fight ends by KO, I think could be a cheeky look for this fight. And also fight doesn't go to decision. I think both of them are ones that the prop template does like here, as we see a small trifecta here for the fight doesn't go. And at plus 118 for the under 2.5, we see another trifecta here as plus 3.7%, almost 10%, and 6% advantages in all three of these categories. And then we see another trifecta here in the under 1.5 as it's priced fairly in comparison to the divisional under 1.5 rate. But we see that these guys are going under 1.5 at almost 20% better than the rate here at 36%. We see 56%. And we see that these guys are going under 1.5, about 19% higher than the division does. So for the Tiuliulin Pickett fight, the prop template is telling us that the violence bets are underpriced. So that might be something we want to take advantage of here. I think Tiuliulin by KO is an interesting way to play this fight. And I'm going to pick Tiuliulin to win this fight because even though Pickett's got a chance to wrestle a little bit, got a chance to maybe win some minutes in the clinch here, I think that it'll be Tiuliulin who lands the bigger shots, the more eye-catching shots. And should this fight go the distance, that might be enough to win him a decision here. So I'm going to pick Tiuliulin to win this fight. And I'm going to pick him to win it by decision, but I think that the knockout is actually live. But Pickett is a very durable dude. So that's the way I'm going for that one here. The next fight is the pleasure man, Anton Turkalj, stepping up on short notice to take a fight that nobody would take against Maladino Jailton Almeida. Let me see here. What's got Kiwi's going to be using the spinning cat fat kick. This is nuts, man. You guys, this is a crazy one. I mean, really ridiculous stuff here. With gone by Cornbread here saying, thanks so much for the picks last weekend at Uncle Weezy. I hit a variation of your greasy four-legger with gone by KO. That's spectacular. I'm so glad to hear that, man. And Camden Gleason saying, where's the stats? The stats are in the description of the video, Camden. But anyway, let's keep moving here. Yeah, the pleasure man. What a name, dude. Let's go with this one. So Almeida against the pleasure man. Almeida was supposed to fight the very handsome Shamil Abdurakhimov, but Abdurakhimov had visa problems, so he couldn't wind up showing up to fight Jailton Almeida. So the pleasure man, Anton Turkalj, stepping in on short notice here. 5 years younger than Jailton, 1 inch taller, and it's Jailton will have a 1 inch reach advantage. Jailton, 10 more pro fights, about 40 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's got 2 more fights at the UFC level, but they have the same amount of time in the cage. Jailton, a 100% finisher. The pleasure man, an 88% finisher, but he was a 100% finisher before his Contender Series fight against Ocasio dos Santos. And Jailton has been knocked out once in 2 losses. The pleasure man has never lost. So Jailton is shutting people down. He's only absorbed 7 significant strikes in 3 UFC fights. Let me repeat that so it sinks in. Jailton Almeida has absorbed 7 significant strikes in 3 fights. So what is he doing? He's taking people down and he's mauling them. Jailton is 6 of 9 on his takedowns, and he's got 75% control time for, and he's allowed 15.5% control time against. So over 90% of Jailton's fights are taking place in control time position. So if you're going to have any kind of a chance at all of surviving with Jailton Almeida, you have to be a grappler of the highest order. Excellent wrestling, excellent Brazilian jiu-jitsu, an excellent get-up game. an ability to not accept being taken down. Don't give up your back. Don't do things that will allow this guy to be able to get his ground and pound off and then work for his submission game here. But you see Jailton putting up these video game numbers at 6.27 takedowns per 15 minutes and 2.09 submission attempts per 15 minutes. The Pleasure Man is attempting 11 takedowns per 15 minutes, which I think might be the highest in the entire UFC, which is just an amazing number. But yeah, 78% control time for as well. So look, the Pleasure Man did in his 15 minutes in the UFC cage, he had a very similar performance to what Jailton has done, but it's been impressive what Jailton's done, doing it to guys, like Nasruddinov, like Danilo Marquez, who's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like the huge Parker Porter. The guy's ass has his own orbit, so a gravitational pull, and he took that dude down and absolutely just mauled him. So there's a reason why Jailton Almeida is a massive favorite in this fight. The Pleasure Man's taking it on short notice, but if the Pleasure Man can get this into deep waters, get this into the second and the third round, we really have no clue what Jailton looks like in late rounds of a fight. I mean, he's been knocked out once. He's had one fight go to decision, and he lost that fight. And if you watch that fight, after the first round, he doesn't do anything. So it's a very difficult fight, you really have to know what the Pleasure Man's grappling is going to look like for a full 15 minutes. So, it's unbettable on the Almeida side, in my opinion. But I kind of figured, because we saw Turkalj, push a grappling heavy pace, attempt 16 takedowns, get 11 of them, control his opponent for almost 4 out of 5 seconds of the entire fight, 80% control time for. If this fight gets out of the first round, I think we can see Turkalj start to have some success in the grappling exchanges. Maybe start to land some big shots on the feet and stuff the takedown attempts of Jailton Almeida. So, when you got one guy here in Almeida who's sitting at what, minus 1,000? Where is he? Jailton Almeida sitting around minus 800 here on Bet Online. Turkalj plus 500. I thought the interesting way to look at it would be Anton Turkalj round 3, which is sitting at plus 4,000 right now on Bet Online, because, Turkalj, it has a lot of the same skills that Almeida is, just not at the level that Almeida does it. But if the conditioning is there, if the submission defense is there, if the patience is there to try to drag Jailton into the deep waters, I think that this is a very interesting spot for the Pleasure Man, and that you could take a very small amount of money in 1/10 of 1 unit and bet Turkalj round 3 or Turkalj round 3 or by decision in order to get a sick plus money number, and play what happens if we see Jailton taken to a place which we've never seen him at the UFC level, which is someplace called the second round. So very interesting fight. Picking Jailton Almeida, get it done inside the distance, even in the first round by submission. But this is a show me spot for Anton Turkalj, and if his grappling holds up, if his submission defense holds up, and if his wrestling is on the level that it was against Dos Santos, this could be a very interesting fight. So yeah, pick his Jailton Almeida, but that's unbettable. I'm going to be looking for ways to play the Pleasure Man here to get this done if he finds this fight in deep water. And I think the best way to do it is I'm going to be looking for a plus 5,000 or better prop. Shout out Lou Betya for the Pleasure Man round 3, you guys. But yeah, the pick is Almeida. All right, you guys. And Fender Jazz saying, hey, Weezy, 0 for 5 on DWCS tonight. Set my own record there. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Man, that's ridiculous. I can't believe that, because it's hard to go 0-5. But, the Contender Series is hard. It's hard, dude. There's not a lot of tape available. Sometimes you have to make assumptions based on very small sample sizes of these guys, and it's a difficult game to play. Just ask Yanni the Greek, who's been getting his ass shaved week after week after week on DWCS. So, yeah, man, that's why we're looking at UFC 279 tonight, Fender Jazz. Got to figure out ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks here for this event. But the next fight that we have to talk about is going to be Hakeem Dawodu going up against Julian Erosa. This one, you guys, is going to be an absolute banger. So we've got, let me get the stats up on the screen. Dawodu Erosa. So we've got Dawodu 31 years old, Julian Erosa 33. So it's Erosa who's the bigger dude here. 5 inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage, and he's the southpaw. So I like the measurables advantage here for Erosa. I also like the experience advantage here for Erosa, as he's got 20 more pro fights, almost 200 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's got a career that spanned over 3 years longer than Dawodu. He's got 3 more fights at the UFC level and only 7 less minutes in the cage than Dawodu does. When it comes to the finish stats and the durability, Erosa, the much better finisher here, is he's got an 85% finish rate as a pro. Very impressive. 22 of 27 wins inside the distance. Actually, I think it might be 23. It's 23 of 27, and it's that would be 11 by knockout, 12 by submission. So the dude is an equal opportunity finisher, while Dawodu entirely is reliant on the striking. You know, as a guy who's never gotten a takedown at the UFC level, and he's never even attempted a submission at the UFC level, and he's never even gotten a submission as a win in his career. So, yeah, Erosa's tricky with his grappling and his chokes. When it comes to durability here, Erosa's been finished in 4 of 5 UFC losses. Dawodu has been submitted in 1 of 2 UFC losses, and Dawodu only finished once as a pro. Erosa finished 5 times as a pro, 4 times in the UFC. When it comes to the striking, definitely got to give the advantage to Dawodu. What a great minute winner he is on the feet. Landing 5.39, only absorbing 2.72 significant strikes per minute, throwing 4 more significant strike attempts per minute, landing at over 50%, showing almost 60% striking defense, only been knocked down once in 8 UFC fights. Dawodu, fantastic minute winner on the feet, could potentially be a moment winner against a guy like Erosa that's been knocked down 7 times in 11 UFC fights. But still, I think that Dawodu does what he always does his best to make sure that the fight remains a kickboxing match and that he outvolumes his opponents and tries to find ways to win minutes on the feet. Erosa absorbs more significant strikes than he lands, but he throws a little more volume than his opponents. But you could see that Erosa's in much higher volume fights here. Even though Erosa's fights take place in control time positions 29% of the time, and for Dawodu it's about 25% of the time, we see the volume numbers here for Erosa just much bigger. This is going to be a much more chaotic fight than what Dawodu is used to. Dawodu is very used to his opponent standing right in front of him and engaging in that kickboxing match, with the exception, of course, of the fight against Evloev, where Evloev just took him down and drowned him. Prior to that fight, Dawodu was sporting somewhere near 90% takedown defense. Now it's 66%. And it's because Evloev really showed that hole in his game. But we don't have to worry about Erosa doing that. Erosa might get a takedown at some point in this fight. He's gotten 11 takedowns in 11 fights, but he's only attempted 21. You know, he's happy to strike. And he's gotten his takedowns at over a 52% clip. He's getting 1.7 per 15 minutes, attempting almost 1 submission per 15 minutes. And, getting out-controlled by a little bit here, but not by much. Julian Erosa, will be interested. He'll be probably the better submission grappler here, the more likely guy to get a submission. But when we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, it's Dawodu has the better ratio overall, but Erosa was fighting the slightly more experienced competition. The wins, pretty even here. The loss is a little bit better for Dawodu, of course. But yeah, this is a close fight, in my opinion. Dawodu's not sleeping dudes. That's the thing. Only one knockout at the UFC level. So if this fight goes the full 3, we could see Erosa start to find some success by pushing the pace, by walking Hakeem down, by putting out a volume that Hakeem is not used to seeing, because Hakeem's used to seeing less than 7 significant strike attempts per minute thrown his way. Erosa's throwing more than twice that. So it's going to be interesting. I think Hakeem Dawodu does win this fight by decision because he's not been a finisher at the UFC level. But I think that this is going to be a chaotic fight, a very fun fight. And when we look at the props for this fight, Dawodu Erosa plus 120 fight doesn't go to decision, getting a 7.18% break. When we compare the 53% finish rate of these guys at the UFC level to the 45% implied probability of the line. And we can see here, 52.63% of these guys' fights have finished inside the distance, but it's Erosa's fights that are finishing at a 73% clip and Dawodu's fights that are finishing at a 25% clip. But in my opinion, I think it's Erosa who drags Dawodu into the high-volume, chaotic war instead of vice versa, Dawodu drawing Erosa into the lower-volume staring contest. But, yeah, I still think Dawodu does get his way here, and he wins the minutes on the feet, and then I'm going to pick him to win this fight by decision. The next one that we're going to is Johnny Walker versus Ion Cutelaba. Walker plus 190. Cutelaba minus 225. The fight doesn't go to decision, juiced all the way up to minus 325 here. Excuse me, let me get a little water. All right. So this is one that the time props are way juiced on. But we see that Ion is 2 years younger, but as Johnny Walker is obviously much bigger, 5 inches taller, a 7-inch reach advantage, and it's an orthodox versus southpaw matchup. So both guys, while this fight is on the feet, will be having their power weapons open for business here. Both of these guys have 25 professional fights. They both have a very similar amount of cage time. And we can see here that the average fight time for these guys is pros. 4.94 minutes for Walker, 5.2 for Cutelaba, right? And at the UFC level, 7.28 average fight time for Johnny Walker, and one of those fights is a 5-round fight. And if you throw that one out, I think the average fight time would be 40 minutes in 8 fights, so it would be 5 minutes. And then Cutelaba, 7.89 minute average fight time here in 12 UFC fights. When we look at the finish stats, Walker finishing at a 94% rate, Cutelaba 88% rate, and in these guys, 10 combined UFC wins, 7 of them have been inside the distance, and in these guys, 10 combined UFC losses, 5 for Cutelaba, 2, so 7 of 10 losses. So, yes, these guys are finishing their fights at exactly a 70% clip in their wins and their losses. So, very interesting fight here. The striking goes to Walker. The grappling goes to Cutelaba. Walker is going to have that 7-inch reach advantage, the big power numbers, and just the more flashy strikes coming from every angle. Cutelaba wins with volume and pressure and mixing in that wrestling. But we see Walker a lot more accurate, Walker a lot more powerful, twice as many knockdowns per 15 minutes. And we see Walker with a 42% striking defense and being knocked down at a 2.2% rate of the significant strikes that he absorbs. But Cutelaba has been knocked down twice in 12 fights, so he's not exactly not chinny either. and both of these guys' striking defense sitting below 50%. So you got to figure somebody's getting slept here. Now, Walker not one to attempt takedowns, and actually, he's only faced 16 takedowns in 9 fights. So even though he's only been controlled about 21% of the time, Ion Cutelaba has shot 48 takedowns in 12 fights, and he's gotten 30 of them, getting them at a 62.5% clip, 4.75 takedowns per 15 minutes, and out-controlling his opponents 23% to 13%, showing 80% takedown defense in his own right. So it's just, for this one here, if we look at the strength of schedule, more experienced opponents for Walker, better win-loss ratio for Cutelaba. The wins, though, I like better for Walker than I do for Cutelaba. So I like Walker's striking. I like his wins in the strength of schedule. Love the size. The experience is very even. The wrestling is much better for Cutelaba, but I don't see Cutelaba really getting wins with the wrestling. And I think he would have to do that here and hold down Johnny Walker. But Johnny Walker being that ridiculously tall, I think it's going to be very difficult for Cutelaba to win minutes via the grappling here. I think Walker's striking is being severely underrated. And Cutelaba, he's got a 48% striking defense. I think that's going to be a very bad thing here against Walker. And I think Walker is going to be able to, while Cutelaba is trying to close the distance to wrestle, land something big and knock this dude out. Like I say, Cutelaba finished in 5 of 6 losses at the UFC level. So I'm going to be picking Johnny Walker to win this fight inside the distance by knockout. What do we have on the line for that one? So Walker by KO is plus 325, and he's plus 190 on the money line. So I think I'm going to be taking a look at a Walker by KO prop here because Cutelaba is not exactly defensively responsible on the feet. And we saw, a couple different times Magomed Ankalaev, who's very low volume, but a very accurate striker, finish this dude. So I don't see why Johnny Walker can't do it. So one of the big underdog picks that I'm going to be laying with here is Johnny Walker by knockout. Next fight, though, is going to be Irene Aldana at minus 168, going up against Macy Chimaev at plus 148. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at plus 150 here. I just came in. How come no spreadsheet? Isn't the spreadsheet in the description of the video, you guys? Didn't I put it there? I don't know why that's not there. But either way, if there's no spreadsheets in the link of the description of the video, I will put that there after the show is over. So it's there for you guys, Brian. So, yeah. But also, if you guys want to support me, you can join the Patreon because I do have the stats out early to everybody on the Patreon for only $5 a month, $1.25 a week to get the stats that I work so hard to put out for free. So if you want to support me on the Patreon, you can sign up for that, Brian. And then, it is in the description. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, you can always, I put it out there for free for you guys because it's us against the bookies. I want everybody to be able to make great gambling decisions using as much information as there is possible. So, but yeah, I'm glad it's in the description. So thank you for moving on. So I can move on now with this one here, Aldana versus Chimaev. So, we got 4 more fights to break down here. It's Macy, who's younger and going to be much bigger here. Love the measurables for Macy Chimaev in this spot. Macy's bigger than everybody in this division. Aldana with 9 more pro fights, 40 more minutes in the pro cage, and 5 more years as a pro, though. And she's also got 2 more fights at the UFC level and about 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. When it comes to finish rates, both of these ladies finish at a 50% rate at the UFC level, and it's a 50% rate overall for Macy and a 77% finish rate overall for Aldana. Macy's been subbed in 1 of 2 losses, and Irene Aldana has never been finished at the UFC level, and she's been knocked out twice prior to being in the UFC. The striking advantage is going to go to Irene Aldana here, And she's an excellent striker with great power and knockouts, great boxer. Macy Chiasson does her best work in the clinch. And she's such a huge girl that when she gets in that clinch, that's where she's able to win a lot of minutes by just wearing on the smaller opponents, by using her strength, by using her size, those sharp elbows to work, win minutes in the clinch. Look at Aldana's volume, 14.23 thrown, 15.23 come back her way, 61% striking defense, only been knocked down once in 10 UFC fights. And she does absorb more strikes than she lands, but we know that from watching her fights, seeing her excellent record at the UFC level of 6-4, she's winning minutes on the feet. Macy's getting some takedowns. She's getting some control time here, as you can see. Macy's fights are taking place in control time positions over 60% of the time, over an 85-minute sample size. Now, Irene Aldana, only 2.36% control time for, 13.2% control time allowed. So she has given up some takedowns, but she's got excellent takedown defense on the aggregate here at 85%. So the question is here, who gets their way, right? Because if Irene Aldana's having her way, 85% of this fight takes place in the center of the cage at striking range, where Aldana will be the better technical striker and just has much better, more crisp stand-up, period, right? But if Macy has her way and starts to drag Irene over to the cage, and then maybe starts to work for some trips and tries to get on top and make Irene wear that extra weight, that could be a problem for Irene. And we see Macy having success doing that, getting 2 takedowns for 15 minutes, attempting submissions, allowing, 19% control time against, but, being efficient, out wrestling her opponents, out controlling her opponents. When we look at the strength of schedule here, we're going to see a decided advantage for Irene Aldana. More experienced competition, but much better ratio and much better wins. As we see, they're both fighting opponents with about 6 total fights. It's much better ratios for Irene Aldana's competition than it is for Macy Chiasson's. And then the losses, in addition to that, favor Aldana. So I like the strength of schedule and the striking for Aldana, and also that UFC experience edge and pro experience edge. But I like the grappling, the clinch game, the size of Macy Chiasson. And I like the plus money too. And when we go over here to the advanced stats, which are the first tab on the stats, which can be downloaded for free in the description of the video, or you could join the Patreon. When we see Aldana here, we got 4 losses, right, at the UFC level. Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington, Caitlin Chookagian, Leslie Smith, right? Out-controlled by 11 seconds, out-controlled by 18 seconds, out-controlled by 326 seconds, out-controlled by 313 seconds. In all 4 of those fights, her opponents are bringing a style. Damn it, why did that Okay. Other than the Chookagian fight, of course, who's not really a grappler first. She's a minute winner in the striking. We see 11 takedown attempts here, 6 takedown attempts here, 14 takedown attempts here. So when these fighters are using these grappling heavy game plans, they're dragging Irene into fights that she's losing. In the fights that she's winning, which are the ones that aren't headlined, as we look at the opponent's stats here, we see 0 takedown attempts, 0, 1, 2, 0, and then 11. So the only fighter who didn't win with a grappling heavy game plan was Talita Bernardo back in 2018. Talita outcontrolled her 357 to 86, but Irene still won the decision because she landed 70 significant strikes to only 46 for Talita. So, I guess long story short here is that Macy Chiasson has the tools to push a game plan that Irene Aldana has not succeeded well in. She's 1-4 in fights where people have brought at least 5 takedown attempts to the table. And I think that Macy's probably going to do that here. And I think that Macy can potentially win minutes up against the cage as well. The common opponent here is Raquel Pennington. They both lost to Raquel. Macy got submitted by Raquel, though, while Irene lost a split decision to her. And Raquel Pennington brings a very similar type of game plan to Macy Chiasson. It's just that Raquel's not as big as Macy, but Raquel's got better boxing than Macy does. So I think while Raquel is very efficient in the clinch and really good at winning minutes there, I think Macy could be better potentially in the clinch just because she does what Raquel does, but she's bringing all that extra size. But I still think it's going to be a tough row to hoe here for Macy Chiasson, and I think that if she does win this fight, it's going to be by decision. So I think I'll be looking at a Macy Chiasson by decision bet here, and the best line that we can find right now for that, Chiasson by submission, Chiasson by decision, plus 300. I want a little bit better than that. I think plus 420 on Chiasson by decision in her last fight, and I cashed that one. So I'll be looking for that, but I still think that it's going to be Irene Aldana who wins this fight because she's got the better strength of schedule. She's more experienced at this level. She's got the better technical striking, and she's been finishing fights as well as winning minutes too. So I think she's got more ways to win this fight, but I also think that Chiasson brings a type of style which Irene has struggled with, which is why I'm not willing to lay the minus 170 juice here on Aldana. I think that the best bet would be Chiasson by decision at better than plus 300 here. But the pick is Aldana. Next fight. Kevin Holland versus D-Rod. What a banger this is. My God, what a great fight, man. Let's go to the stats. So, big time measurables advantage here for Kevin Holland is he's 6 years younger, 2 inches taller, and has a 7-inch reach advantage. Orthodox versus Southpaw matchup. Both these guys' power weapons will be open for business. It's Holland who's more experienced with 13 more fights and 100 more minutes in the cage and about 3 more years as a pro. He's also got 8 more UFC fights and almost 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. Kevin Holland, both of these guys have great finish rates. 75% overall for Rodriguez, 83% overall for Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland's finishing at a 72% rate at the UFC level, while Daniel Rodriguez is finishing at a 43% rate. These guys have got 5 combined UFC losses. Only one of them has been inside the distance, and Kevin Holland has been submitted twice in 7 pro losses. Daniel Rodriguez has never been finished. When we look at the striking stats, I'm going to give that advantage to Kevin Holland here, but both of these guys are putting up excellent striking numbers. Holland lands 3.9, absorbs 2.4, so that's a positive 1.5 significant strike differential, and he throws almost 2 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, while Rodriguez is landing about 2.7 more significant strike attempts or significant strikes per minute than his opponents and throwing over 3 more significant strike attempts. Holland's more accurate, slightly more powerful based on the rate, but per 15 minutes, it's Daniel Rodriguez who's doubling up Kevin Holland in knockdowns for 15 minutes. Holland has never been knocked down, though. He's got legendary durability, and Rodriguez was this close to getting finished by Dwight Grant, but he's very durable as well and was able to come back and win the fight in the same round that he got dropped in. So both of these guys are extremely durable here. Other thing that neither one of these guys really does is wrestle. 32 takedown attempts combined for Rodriguez and Holland in 24 UFC fights. So that one is like 1.33 takedown attempts per fight from these guys. So I think that's very important, right? Because if we know that neither one of these guys is likely to offensively wrestle, then we can say, all right, who wins the striking battle here? And, you know, it'll probably be Rodriguez, who's like the more clean, technical boxer, but Holland's got all that length, and he throws with a ton of power. And the other thing about Holland is that you don't see in the stats is the constant shit talking. The constant shit talking that can get into anybody's head. And somebody like Daniel Rodriguez, who's not only had fights at the UFC level on the regional scene, but dozens of fights in jail as well, where he claims to be undefeated. You know, this fight is so awesome on so many different levels. I think both of these guys are at their best when they're striking. And I think both of these guys are going to give each other the fight that they want. They're going to stand in front of each other. They're going to bang. They're going to throw down. This is such a great main card pay-per-view fight here. Now, strength of schedule. The ratio, very similar. But it's Holland who has about 3.2 more fights per minute. Or, I'm sorry, 3.2 more fights average on the competition. So the average record of a Holland opponent, 6.63 wins, 4.56 losses. For Rodriguez is 4.88 and 3.13. The wins are a little bit better for Rodriguez, aren't they? 1.68 ratio to 1.3 for Holland, but Holland's more experienced competition. And don't forget, a lot of these wins for Holland up at 185, while everything for Rodriguez down here at 170. And then we got it's Holland who has the better wins because Rodriguez's only loss came against Nick Dalby, but he won that fight. So just bad. That was bad judging. So, Holland, the last five names, Brunson, Vittori, Dawkins, Oliveira, and Means. Last five names for Rodriguez, Kevin Lee, Preston Parsons, Mike Perry, Nick Dalby, and Dwight Grant. So, yeah, I'm going to give Holland the strength of schedule advantage here. I don't think either one of these guys grapples much offensively. I think that Holland should be the minute winner on the feet here because of the length and because of the propensity to land with a little more power, in my opinion, and just that huge size advantage and experience advantage. So I like Holland in this fight. I think he gets it done. But my favorite bet of the week, when we talked about it on Propability earlier on the MMA Engine YouTube channel, when we look at this prop template here, Holland Rodriguez fight goes to decision at plus 155, right? That's only a 39.22% implied probability. But fights go to decision at 170-pound weight class over 50% of the time. So we're overpaying or we're underpaying by about 12%. And we're underpaying by about 11% when we combine how often these guys' fights go to decision at the UFC level, which is 50% of the time exactly. So in Rodriguez and Holland's combined UFC fights, they're going to decision 50% of the time, 11 of 24, and then there was the one draw. So that's 12 of 24. The no contest counts as a fight that didn't go anyway. So either way, still 50% finish rate. So we are getting only a 39% fight goes to decision here. And most importantly, you got two very durable dudes. Kevin Holland has never been dropped in the UFC, or at least I think he hasn't. Let me look. Kevin Holland has never been dropped. Daniel Rodriguez has only been dropped once. These guys have combined, absorbed over 900 significant strikes at the UFC level. Never been knocked out, either one of them in their entire career. That's 49 professional fights. Never been knocked down. I don't see these guys grappling. So I don't see any submission attempts taking place. So at plus 155, fight goes to decision. My only track bet of the week thus far. So that is one that I'm looking at. The prop template loves it. Loves getting this 12% break here. Loves getting this 11% break here. But the pick is going to be Kevin Holland winning this fight by decision. I don't know if this is the real MMA guru in the room here, but if it is, appreciate you watching the content, and I appreciate you saying that you like it, man. And I will keep it up. You keep doing what you're doing, man. Absolutely love what the MMA guru does, and there is only one MMA guru. That dude does his own thing, and I love that. But thank you for hanging out here. Thank all of you guys for hanging out. We got 78 of you live right now. 12:42 a.m. in Chicago right now. 1:42 a.m. in Philly and New York, everywhere on the East Coast. So appreciate all you guys riding with me here as we break down the last two fights on the UFC 279 card. The co-main event, Li Jingliang against Tony Ferguson. So Tony's 38 years old, going on 39. It's going to be Li who's bigger here, but Tony's got a 5-inch reach advantage. Both of these guys are orthodox fighters. Both of these guys are very experienced. Li only 30 less minutes in the cage, and he's actually been fighting longer than Tony Ferguson has. But Ferguson 4 more fights at the UFC level and about 60 more minutes in the UFC cage. When it comes to the finish rates here, we see an 80% overall finish rate for Tony Ferguson, a 74% overall finish rate for Li Jingliang, and they have been finished. It's Ferguson being finished in 2 of 5 UFC losses. Same thing for Jingliang, but Ferguson's been knocked out twice. Jingliang's been subbed twice. When we look at the striking numbers here, both of these guys land Ferguson lands about 1.3 more significant strikes per minute than his opponents do, and Li Jingliang lands about 0.7 more. But look at these power numbers for Li Jingliang as a welterweight. 1.4% of the significant strikes that he's landing are resulting in a knockdown, and 0.91 knockdowns per 15 minutes. While Ferguson, not really dropping dudes. So when you go back and you watch the career of Tony Ferguson, I think the problem that we're seeing with Ferguson at this point in his career is that he's a guy who's willing to take one to give one, willing to take 2 or 3 to give one. And he's a guy who's trusted his chin for his entire career and eaten a horrific amount of strikes early in fights. The chin doesn't last forever. And Justin Gaethje put him through absolute hell. And then, we saw him lose to Dariush and Oliveira by being dominated on the ground. And then we saw him, get a chance to kickbox again. And then Chandler hits him with that front kick up the middle. So where is Tony Ferguson at this point in his career? 4-fight losing streak. Moving up a weight class at the age of 38. So when you move down, especially at an older age, at least it shows that you're willing to cut the weight, that you're willing to put in that extra work on the treadmill, to put in that extra work for the weight cut, to try to be the bigger guy. For the first time in Tony Ferguson's UFC career, he's fighting at 170. He's moving up a weight class. And he's doing so against a guy who's got a crazy amount of power for the weight class. And for people who are saying Tony Ferguson's the superior grappler and he's going to have a good chance to submit Li Jingliang, I don't see that happening here because Ferguson has only attempted 14 takedowns in his entire UFC career. Look at that. 14. And he's gotten 6 of them, but he's controlling his opponents on the cage and on the mat less than 5% of a 220-minute UFC career, which spans 20 fights. So if you're thinking that Tony Ferguson's going to submit Li Jingliang, he would have to take him down first in order to do it, or knock him down first. And Li, has been knocked down 5 times in his UFC career, but by welterweights, not by lightweights. And Tony Ferguson's a lightweight who has only not getting 0.2 knockdowns per 15 minutes, and that's fighting lightweights. Li Jingliang hits different than lightweights do. I think Tony's going to be at a big power differential here. Li Jingliang's conditioning has always been excellent. Li can mix in wrestling to win minutes too. And if he wants to do that, he can actually do that because Tony Ferguson doesn't really stop takedowns very well and gives up a lot of minutes on the ground. As a matter of fact, more minutes than what Li Jingliang gives up at 170. Tony Ferguson's given up 23% control time, while for Li it's only 18. And Li is his opponents are taking him down for attempting 43 takedowns in 16 fights, while it's 54 for Ferguson in 20. So they're both seeing about the same amount of takedowns per fight. A little bit less than 3 for Ferguson and a little bit less than 3 for Jingliang. So Jingliang might even be more efficient on the ground here, but and he's also the more likely one to attempt takedowns here, as he's got 35 takedown attempts in 16 fights, while it's only 14 takedown attempts in 20 fights for Ferguson. So yeah, the grappling is going to be interesting, but I think that this is going to be a striking match. And ratio the same, but Ferguson the much better competition, and the ratio is better, and the total fights is better for Ferguson here. But once again, at 155, not at 170. Jingliang's recent losses are to Neil Magny and Khamzat Chimaev, and he's beating Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, Ponzinibbio, and Salikov, and he's knocking these dudes out. He's finished his last 3 opponents. Jingliang he's just on fire right now, and Tony Ferguson is not. Tony Ferguson's pushing 40. Tony Ferguson, look, one of my favorite fighters in the history of the UFC. Tony Ferguson, if you've been around this sport for a while watching it, this guy is in nothing but exciting fights. He's given so much to the sport. An absolute warrior. Love Tony Ferguson. But this is a bad matchup for him. And dude, he's completely unintelligible at this point. I gotta wonder where he is, where the decision making in the cage. How is the decision making gonna look? For a guy who can't even string together a sentence that makes any sense at all. Is he gonna be able to put together a game plan in the cage that's gonna be able to beat somebody up a weight class who's 4 years younger than him, who's fought like really good competition here? You compare the names on Ferguson's resume to Lee's, and I mean, like, Lee's probably fought the better competition because it's up a weight class. It's crazy. But I'm picking Li Jingliang to win this one by knockout. I think he's going to knock out Tony Ferguson. The people hit different at 170. The power is completely different up there, and Ferguson's been trusting his chin, but I don't know if it's there anymore. Chandler and Gaethje just put him through hell. I think Li Jingliang is going to win this one. I think he's going to knock out Tony Ferguson, you guys. Let's see here. The next and the main event here is Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. And we had a great suggestion earlier in the night that we should remember the good times about Nate Diaz. Now, Li Jingliang is minus 316. Ferguson plus 266. Fight doesn't go. Sitting at minus 125. I like that fight doesn't go for this fight. I think that both of these guys are great finishers and have a chance to finish. Ferguson could still snatch up a submission, and Li Jingliang got a ton of power. But next fight is the main event. Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. A fight that makes literally no sense at all. Nate Diaz is not in the same stratosphere of mixed martial arts talent as Khamzat Chimaev is. Chimaev's 9 years younger, 2 inches taller. It's going to be a 1-inch reach advantage for Nate Diaz, who's the southpaw. Nate Diaz, 22 more pro fights, about 320 more minutes in the pro cage, and a 13-and-a-half-year longer career. 21 more fights at the UFC level, over 300 more minutes in the UFC cage. Chimaev, a 91% finish rate in 11 wins. An 80% finish rate for Nate Diaz in 20 career wins. And he's got a 73% finish rate at the UFC level, while it's an 80% finish rate for Chimaev. Diaz has been finished in 2 of 11 losses, so he's very durable, while he's been finished in 23% of his pro losses. Chimaev landing 8 strikes a minute, only absorbing 4.3. Diaz landing about a half more significant strike per minute than he absorbs, throwing about 1.6 more in volume. So Nate's power numbers aren't bad. He's landing about 0.2 knockdowns per 15 minutes, but Chimaev's are better. Chimaev's way more accurate. But, Nate Diaz is going to be the better boxer here. But I think it's pretty. Look, I think this fight doesn't stay on the feet for. I think it's maybe 80% of the time will be spent in control time positions, with 100% of that control time being with Khamzat on top of Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz, over a gigantic sample size of 320 minutes and 26 UFC fights, is stuffing takedowns at a 43% clip, and he's being controlled 30% of his UFC career. Folks, that is 96 minutes that Nate Diaz has been controlled at the UFC level. 96 minutes on 54 takedown attempts. And Chimaev will get takedowns here. They'll be very, very easy for him to get. And Nate Diaz, I don't think lands a big punch to knock out Chimaev here. I just think that what happens here is Chimaev takes this dude down. Nate Diaz's 2003 brand of MMA Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu will be absolutely nothing for Chimaev. And since Nate Diaz can't stop takedowns, I just think it's a matter of time before Chimaev just mauls him. I'm picking Chimaev first round ground and pound knockout here. Nate Diaz has nothing for him on the ground. This fight doesn't make any sense. Nate Diaz doesn't even deserve to fight this dude. And I think it's a horrible stylistic matchup for him. And for a guy who's done as much for the UFC to be made this his last UFC fight, to go out on a memory of him just being carried out on a stretcher after this Chechen, guy just mauls his ass on the ground. This is going to look like the Reese McKee fight. This is going to look like the John Phillips fight. I hate to tell you that, but that's what Khamzat's going to do to this guy on the ground. He's going to take him down easily, and he's going to pass his guard easily, and he's going to throw elbows until Nate Diaz's lip looks like Khamzat's. So, yeah, Khamzat Chimaev by ass shaving. Let's not spend any more time on this than we have to, you guys. We did it. We covered all 13 fights on this card. Found some decent spots. Nothing really sticking out this week, you guys. I like some of these underdog spots. I'm looking at that Elise Reed money line. I'm looking at Johnny Walker by KO. I'm looking at Chason by decision. But right now, let's just go over what I've got for track bets. And right now, I'm still haven't pulled the trigger on a lot of this stuff because I'm behind this week due to all the fantasy football drafts that I've had. One tracked bet thus far, only one. And it is the Holland D-Rod fight goes to decision. I'm playing on these guys' durability. I'm playing on the fact that both of these guys can take a punch, and that I think it's going to be a striking match that lasts for the full 15 minutes. I'm picking Kevin Holland to win this one by decision, but I think at plus 155, which is where it is on Bet Online, it makes sense to bet this. You're getting to hang your hat on that awesome durability of Kevin Holland. And I do believe that because of that durability and because of the fact that this isn't going to be a grappling match, that it's going to be mostly a striking battle, that these guys will trade blows and go the full 15. So a fight goes to decision at plus 155 when welterweight fights finish only about 50% of the time. I think is a great look here. And it's my only track bet of the week thus far, but I'm looking at that Reed money line. I'm looking at Chason by decision. I'm looking at Johnny Walker by KO. And Anton Turkalj round 3 at plus 5,000 or better, just in case he is able to survive the first round with Almeida and drag him into a place where we haven't seen him yet and where we have seen Anton not only look good, but thrive in the third round, show excellent conditioning and the ability to push a grappling heavy pace for the full 15 minutes. So those, and Tiuliulin by KO, I think could be an interesting way to play it too. And then the Collier Barnett fight to end by diabetes, I think is almost a lock, but I think that's like sitting at minus 1,000 right now. So that leaves us with only one more order of business on the week, you guys, and it's Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. We're coming off of a beautiful pick last week, Abasupian Magomedov shaving the ass of Dustin Stoltzfus within 20 seconds. So we're going to give you this week's ass shaving of the week. And yeah, I could be a prick and give you Fat Collier over Barnett. I could give you Dumont over Wolf, which is minus 400. I could give you, the Khamzat over Diaz or Jailton over Turkalj, but those lines are all too wide. I had to find something a little bit closer to minus 250, minus 300 here, and I don't like a lot of these favorites this week. So this is a very difficult week for me to pick the ass shaving of the week. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments here. Let me see. Oh my God, I got a couple of donations here, which I missed out on, you guys. We got Kiwi in the room, one of the best supporters of the channel, a member of the Patreon. Much appreciated, saying, cheers, mate. Appreciate all of your hard work. I appreciate you constantly supporting the show, Kiwi. Being a member of the Patreon, it means so much. Appreciate you so much. You're just such a great supporter of the show. And then, of course, Gogo Flamingo, who's always supporting me, who's always supporting Brady and us over at the MMA Engine, just like Kiwi does, saying Diaz Khamzat is a travesty. I agree 100%. Khamzat is bigger than Whitaker, who is considering going to light heavyweight. If Nate starts drooling through interviews a few years from now, this shit is going to be funny. And yeah, man, I mean, he's already a guy, Ferguson and Diaz. You listen to these guys talk for 10 minutes, they don't make any fucking sense at all. It's clear that these guys can't string together more than 3 or 4 words and have no ability to be able to express their feelings through words. They can't use their words. And then you're going to put him in the ring with Khamzat, who's just going to take him down and pound his head through the canvas. Not unlike what Rory McDonald did to Nate all those years ago. Manny Gamburian, who's 135 pounds, came out and fucking destroyed Nate Diaz with wrestling and ground and pound, and then pulled out his shoulder and blew out his shoulder. So the fight that he had won every second of, he wound up losing. So, yeah, I agree. You're absolutely right, man. It's fucked up that they're doing this to him. My guy, Jarno Portilla, Mr. Finland, saying, what if Khamzat slips on a banana peel, man? And yeah, that could always happen. It could always happen. But that's why I'm not laying minus 1,600 on Khamzat. I do like the under 2.5 for that fight, though. I think that's a good one. Ass shaving prediction saying Jake Collier or the leash for Prince of Mischief. King Bicky saying, any idea why D-Rod hasn't been active and why it's at a catch weight? It's at a catch weight? I did not catch this being at a catch weight. $180. Huh. I don't know, King Bicky. I don't know why that's at 180. Did either one of these guys take the fight at short notice? No, they did not. All right, man. Fender Jez saying, much love, Weezy. You rock. Appreciate your work. I appreciate you, man. Nate's cardio could be a factor if it goes past the third round. That's true. But also remember, Nate Diaz went 5 rounds with Conor McGregor at 170, and McGregor gassed out after 1 round. So McGregor was done, had nothing left in the tank after round 1, and Nate still couldn't do anything with him. So I don't know, man. This is rough. Ass shaver should be Dumont. She's just got the best ass, but she will not be the ass shaver. Khamzat's never been 5 rounds in his career. That's correct. Yes, sir. The Leech says Prince of Mischief. I think Holland loses, says the Sleeper. D-Rod had wrist surgery, so that's why he's inactive. Thank you for that heads up, Daz Files. 2 years since Kevin Lee, yeah. Yeah, you got that right. Church Go-Go and Weezy, one thing being stoned, another having lifelong CTE is not funny, and that is agreed. All right, you guys, so what state is this man in doing the podcast? I am in Illinois, and if you're asking any other states, just drinking water. So, yeah. But the ass shaving of the week, you guys, who's it going to be? And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to make this the ass shaving of the week because Tony Ferguson is probably my favorite UFC fighter of all time. But coming up a weight class, Li Jingliang's power is next level. I've always hated Ferguson's willingness to be able to eat one or two to give one. I don't think his power translates at 170. I don't think his fighting style translates anymore due to the fact that he's just too old and he's absorbed too many shots to trust his chin anymore and to just take over people who slow down as the fight goes on. Li Jingliang doesn't slow down. Li Jingliang's power is next level right now. And if he's sniping strikers of Muslim Salikov's quality and Elizu Zaleski dos Santos quality, he's going to have an easy time, I believe, with Tony Ferguson here. Li Jingliang by ass shaving. We did it, you guys. 2 hours and 1 minute in. We got all 13 fights done. We got Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is Li Jingliang. We're going to be looking at a greasy four-leg parlay being put out on my channel either tomorrow or early Thursday. Tomorrow, you can find me on Pub Sports Radio, 6 p.m. Central Time for the DFS show with DFS by the Numbers, with Gordo Gambles, with our guy Monk Maddox. You can find me on Addicted to Combat's YouTube channel. If you haven't went over there and subscribed yet, please do. I'll be breaking down our best bets on every fight on this card with Addicted to Combat tomorrow. And then tomorrow night, 10:30 Central Time, after the Club and Sub podcast, after we're done with the Addicted to Combat show, we are going to be doing Ask Weezy here. So you can ask me any questions about the database, about the prop template, about any of these 13 matchups so we can find some ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 279. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. We got like 80 you guys in here right now. Down to 67 because we're pretty much at the end of the show. But hey, I thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out. God bless each and every one of you. Let's make a ton of money for UFC Vegas 279. And you got 3 places that you can see me tomorrow. And keep an eye out for the greasy four-leg parlay here. And we will see you guys soon. Sleep well. Talk to you guys tomorrow.